I stared at the receipt in my hand, trying to process the four-figure sum I'd just transferred from my savings account. Another investment in my husband's dreams, while mine collected dust in a folder labeled Someday. My name is Ruby, and I've spent the last 3 years watching my career aspirations dissolve into someone else's success story. The irony? I used to be the one everyone bet on. You're sure about this? The bank teller's concerned look matched her tone. I'd seen her enough times that we were on first-name basis. Absolutely, Marie. It's an investment in our future. I forced a smile, one I'd perfected over countless investor meetings, where I played the supportive wife role. My phone buzzed. Ethan's face lit up my screen. Hey, just transferred the money. You should see it in the account soon. You're amazing, babe. This is exactly what we needed for the new dev team. Moises is already interviewing candidates. His excitement was contagious, even through the phone. Dinner tonight? I'm thinking that Italian place you love. Can't tonight. Meeting Rosalind for drinks. She's having a rough time with the divorce. Right. Tomorrow then? I promise I'll make it up to you. I hung up and checked my watch. Just enough time to make it to the office where I worked as a marketing director, a job I'd taken because it offered flexibility to help with Ethan's startup. 3 years ago, I'd been on track to become CMO at one of the city's top firms. While our story unfolds, we're curious. Where are you all watching from today? From beaches to mountains, we'd love to know. Let's continue. Ruby! Nadia, my mentor from my previous company, waved from across the lobby. I was just thinking about you. Nadia? What brings you here? She pulled me into a hug. Client meeting. But listen, there's an executive position opening up at Vertex. Your name came up in the board meeting. My heart skipped. Vertex was everything I dreamed of. I can't. Ethan's company is at a crucial stage. Nadia's face fell. You're still putting everything into his startup? Ux, it's our startup, I corrected automatically, though the words felt hollow. Honey, when was the last time you were even involved in a business decision there? Before I could answer, my phone chimed with a text from Heidi, my younger sister. Lunch tomorrow? Need your advice on something. Sorry, Nadia, I should head up, but let's catch up soon. Don't be a stranger, she squeezed my arm. And Ruby, don't forget who you are. The rest of the afternoon dragged until my meeting with Rosalind at our usual bar. She was already nursing a martini when I arrived. You look like hell, she said, pushing a glass toward me. Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special. Seriously, what's wrong? And don't say nothing. I've known you too long for that. I sighed, swirling my drink. Ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Not all the time during my marriage. She leaned forward. Is this about Ethan's company? I just transferred another chunk of my savings. That's 6 figures now, Roz. 6. And I barely know what's happening there anymore. Have you talked to him about it? He's so focused right now. The company's growing. They're hiring. I don't want to be that wife who holds him back. But it's okay for him to hold you back? Before I could respond, movement at the bar caught my eye. A familiar figure was leaving through the side door. Ethan. But he wasn't alone. A woman was with him, her hand on his arm, laughing at something he'd said. Ruby, what is it? Nothing, I said quickly. Thought I saw someone I knew. But my hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. Ethan's earlier text glowed on the screen. Stuck at the office tonight, big project deadline. You okay? Rosalind's voice seemed far away. Yeah, I lied, my mind racing. Just remembered something I need to check on at work. I grabbed my purse, making excuses to leave. Outside, I stood in the cool evening air, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. It was probably nothing. A colleague? A potential investor. But as I flagged down a taxi, I couldn't shake the image of that woman's familiar laugh, the way she'd touched Ethan's arm. Something in my gut told me this wasn't the first time he'd lied about working late. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Heidi. Really need to talk. Important. I closed my eyes, letting my head rest against the taxi's window. Tomorrow, I decided. tomorrow I'd start asking questions. But deep down, I already knew I wouldn't like the answers. The cafe where Heidi and I always met was unusually quiet. My sister sat across from me, shredding a napkin into tiny pieces, avoiding my eyes. Something was off. She'd barely touched her usual caramel latte. "So, what's this important thing we need to discuss?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light despite the knot in my stomach. She flinched. I don't know how to say this. "Since when do you struggle to tell me anything?" I forced a laugh. "You've been oversharing since you learned to talk." Tears welled in her eyes. "Ruby, I've done something terrible." The knot in my stomach tightened. "What is it?" "It's about Ethan." Her voice cracked. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What about Ethan? We've been—" She took a shaky breath. "We've been seeing each other." The words hit me like a physical blow. The cafe's ambient noise faded to a dull roar as memories flashed through my mind. Ethan's late nights, Heidi's sudden interest in tech startups, their awkward behavior at family dinners. "How long?" The words came out barely above a whisper. 6 months. She reached for my hand. I yanked it away. 6 months! My voice rose sharply. Several heads turned our way. My husband and my sister, for 6 months. "Ruby, please." "Please what?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Please forgive you for sleeping with my husband while I poured my life savings into his company. It wasn't supposed to happen." Tears streamed down her face. "We never meant to get caught?" I grabbed my purse. "Don't follow me." Outside, the spring air felt suffocating. My phone was already ringing. "Heidi." I declined the call and dialed Ethan's number instead. He answered on the third ring. "Hey babe, I'm in a meeting." "Come home, now." I hung up before he could respond. The drive home was a blur. I paced our living room, touching things that suddenly felt foreign. Wedding photos, shared memories, lies. When Ethan finally walked in, his face told me he already knew. "She told you." It wasn't a question. 6 months, Ethan? While I supported your dreams, funded your company, put my life on hold? He stepped toward me. "Ruby, I can explain." "Explain what? How you fucked my sister. How you looked me in the eye every day and lied." "It was a mistake. I'll end it, I swear. We can work through this." I laughed. A harsh sound that surprised even me. "Work through this? Do you have any idea how much money I've invested in your company?" "Our company," he corrected automatically. "My money," I snapped. "Or did you forget where your seed funding came from?" His face changed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying get out, now." "Ruby, please, I love you. Get out!" I grabbed the nearest object, a crystal vase, our wedding gift, and hurled it at the wall beside him. It shattered spectacularly. He backed toward the door, hands raised. "I'll give you space. We'll talk when you're calmer." The door clicked shut behind him. I stood in the silence, surrounded by broken glass and broken promises, when my phone rang again. "Nadia." "I just heard," she said when I answered. "Rosalind called me." I can't think straight." My voice shook. "Listen to me carefully, Ruby. Don't do anything rash. Not yet." "What do you mean?" "You're a majority stakeholder in his company, right? Through your investments?" "Yes, but—" "Then you have power, real power. Don't waste it on a dramatic divorce announcement or public scandal." I sank onto the couch. "What are you suggesting?" "Come to my office tomorrow. We'll talk strategy. There are better ways to handle this than throwing vases." "You heard that?" "Honey, I think the whole neighborhood heard that." Her voice softened. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we plan." After hanging up, I walked to our home office. Opening the safe, I pulled out every document related to Ethan's company. Every investment, every transfer, every agreement I'd signed. 6 figures of my money, built from years of bonuses and savings, all poured into his dream. My phone buzzed with texts. "Heidi. Please let me explain." "Ethan. I'll sleep at a hotel. Call me when you're ready to talk." "Rosalind. My couch is ready if you need it." I ignored them all, spreading the documents across the desk. Nadia was right. I had power. Real power. And for the first time since hearing Heidi's confession, I felt something other than pain. I felt purpose. Nadia's corner office overlooked the city skyline, but I barely noticed the view. My attention was fixed on the spreadsheets spread across her desk, each one detailing my investments in Ethan's company. "You own 43%, Nadia said, tapping her pen against the papers. "That's not just money you've invested, it's documented voting rights." "And Ethan?" 30%. His partner Moises holds 15, and the rest is split among minor investors. She leaned back. "You're the majority stakeholder, Ruby." "Which means what, exactly?" "It means," she smiled, "you have options. Legal, calculated options." My phone buzzed. Another message from Ethan. I switched it off. First step," Nadia continued. "We need someone on the inside. Someone with access to current financials and board meetings." "Moises," I said immediately. "He's always been more practical than Ethan, less emotional." "Perfect. Set up a meeting. Be honest about the situation, but strategic." 2 days later, I sat across from Moises in a quiet restaurant far from the office. His expression remained neutral as I explained everything. "I had no idea," he said finally, "about any of it. Neither did I." I took a sip of water. "But here's the thing, Moises. I'm not looking to destroy the company. I want to save it." He raised an eyebrow. "From Ethan?" "From his impulsive decisions. You've seen them yourself. The rushed hiring, the overambitious projections. The new office lease we can't afford," he added quietly. "Exactly." I leaned forward. "Work with me. Help me take control before he runs this thing into the ground." Moises studied me for a long moment. "What's your plan?" "First, I need information. Real information, not the sugar-coated updates I've been getting." He nodded slowly. "I can do that, but Ethan can't know." "Of course not." I pulled out my card. "Use this number only. No company email." Back at my temporary office, a small co-working space I'd rented, I began receiving Moises's updates. The picture wasn't pretty. Ethan had been making promises to investors that the company couldn't keep, and Heidi's recent promotion to project manager was raising eyebrows. "Your sister's not qualified for the position," Rosalind said bluntly over lunch. "Everyone knows it." "Everyone except Ethan, apparently." I stabbed at my salad. "Or maybe he knows and doesn't care. So what's next in this master plan of yours?" Before I could answer, my phone lit up with an unknown number. A text from Moises. "Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. E wants to discuss new funding round." "Perfect timing," I muttered. "What is?" I showed her the text. "Ethan's about to discover that his wife isn't as passive as he thought." The next morning, I walked into the board meeting wearing my sharpest suit. Ethan's face went pale when he saw me. "Ruby, what are you doing here?" I smiled, taking a seat. "I'm the majority stakeholder, remember? I have every right to be here." Heidi, sitting next to him, looked like she wanted to disappear. "Good. Now," I addressed the room, "I understand we're discussing a new funding round?" Ethan cleared his throat. "Yes, we need additional capital for expansion." "Interesting." I opened my laptop. "Because according to these projections, what we actually need is better management of existing resources." The room went quiet. Moises shifted in his seat, hiding a smile. "I've prepared an alternative proposal." I started my presentation. "Our current burn rate is unsustainable. We're hemorrhaging money on unnecessary expenses while core development is underfunded." For the next 30 minutes, I laid out every financial misstep, every questionable decision, every inflated projection. With each slide, Ethan's face grew redder. "This is ridiculous," he finally exploded. "You can't just walk in here." "Actually, I can. And I am." I turned to the other board members. "As majority stakeholder, I move to temporarily suspend all major financial decisions pending a complete audit." "I second the motion," Moises said immediately. The vote was quick and decisive. Ethan watched helplessly as his control began slipping away. After the meeting, he caught up to me in the parking lot. "What are you doing, Ruby?" "Protecting my investment." I kept walking. "Is this about us? About Heidi? Because we can fix that." I spun around. "Fix it? You think this is about fixing our marriage? Then what is it about?" "It's about consequences, Ethan." I met his eyes. "You're about to learn that every action has them." As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Nadia. "How did it go?" I smiled, thinking of Ethan's face when I took control of that meeting. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Her response came quickly. "Always. Dinner tonight? We have a lot to plan." For the first time in days, I felt truly powerful. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine. And I was just getting started. "You're doing what?" Rosalind nearly choked on her wine. "Going to my parents' anniversary dinner," I repeated, adjusting my earrings in her bathroom mirror. "With Ethan." "Have you lost your mind?" "Yo, it's called strategy." I applied a final coat of lipstick. "Mom's already devastated about the separation. I'm not ruining their 40th anniversary by making it public." "And Heidi?" "Conveniently caught food poisoning." I smiled grimly. "At least that's what she told them." The drive to the restaurant with Ethan was thick with tension. He kept glancing at me, probably trying to reconcile this composed version of his wife with the one who'd thrown a vase at him. "Ruby," he started. "Don't." I kept my eyes on the road. "We're doing this for my parents, that's all." The restaurant was packed with family friends. My parents beamed when we walked in hand, the perfect couple. If only they knew. "Where's Heidi?" Mom asked, hugging me. "Food poisoning," I said smoothly. "She sends her love." Throughout dinner, I played my part flawlessly, laughing at the right moments, touching Ethan's arm occasionally, sharing knowing looks. But underneath the table, my phone buzzed constantly with updates from Moises about the company audit. "Everything okay?" Ethan whispered as I checked another message. "Just work," I smiled sweetly. "You know how it is, always something urgent." His jaw tightened. He knew exactly what kind of work I was dealing with. Back at Rosalind's apartment, my temporary home, I kicked off my heels and opened my laptop. Moises's latest email confirmed what I'd suspected. Heidi's promotion had come with an unauthorized salary increase, far above market rate. "Got you," I muttered, forwarding the evidence to my lawyer. My phone rang. Nadia. "How was dinner with the parents?" "Oscar-worthy performance," I sighed. "But exhausting. Good news, though. Our contact at the investment firm got back to me. They're interested in meeting." I sat up straighter. "Really? That was fast." "They've been watching the company for a while. Your audit revelations just confirmed their suspicions about management issues." The next morning, I walked into the office I'd set up in the co-working space to find Heidi waiting. "How did you get in here?" "Told reception I was your sister." She looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Ruby, please, I'm drowning here. The new project they gave me, I'm not qualified. I can't handle it." "Funny how actions have consequences, isn't it?" "I know you're behind the audit," she said quietly. "Behind everything." "Prove it." "I'm your sister. I know how you think." "No." I stepped closer. "You lost the right to call yourself my sister when you slept with my husband." "I'm sorry." She burst into tears. "I never meant to get caught, to face consequences, to actually have to earn your position instead of sleeping your way into it." Her face crumpled. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to do your job, the one you're so desperately unqualified for. And when you fail, and you will fail, I want you to remember that you did this to yourself." After she left, I called Nadia. "Heidi just paid me a visit." "How did that go?" "About as well as expected." I rubbed my temples. "She knows I'm behind everything. Does it matter?" "No," I said after a moment. "It actually makes it better." That afternoon, I had another board meeting. Ethan looked exhausted. his usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. The audit findings were devastating: financial mismanagement, unauthorized bonuses, inflated projections. These decisions have put us in a precarious position. I concluded my presentation. We need immediate changes in management structure. You can't just. Ethan started. Actually, she can, Moises interrupted. And she should. The vote was unanimous. Effective immediately, all major decisions would require board approval, meaning my approval. In the hallway afterward, Ethan grabbed my arm. This isn't you, Ruby. This calculated revenge. I pulled away. You have no idea who I am anymore, but you're about to find out. That night, I sat in my temporary office, staring at the city lights. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Heidi's really upset. Whatever's happening between you girls, please fix it. I turned the phone face down. The time for fixing things was long past. Now was the time for dismantling, piece by piece, decision by decision, until there was nothing left of the life they'd destroyed. My laptop pinged with an email from the investment firm. Meeting confirmed for tomorrow. I smiled, thinking of Ethan's face when he realized just how thoroughly I'd orchestrated his downfall. This double life, playing the civil ex-wife while systematically taking control, was exhausting, but watching them squirm made it worth every moment. The investment firm's conference room felt colder than necessary. I watched Ethan fidget with his tie as the potential investors reviewed our presentation. These numbers are concerning, said Sarah, the lead investor, particularly the management turnover rate. We're implementing changes, Ethan started, but I cut him off. Actually, we're completely restructuring our management approach. I pulled up a new slide. I've developed a transition plan that addresses these issues. Ethan's head snapped toward me. This was the first he'd heard of it. Interesting. Sarah leaned forward. And who would lead this transition? I would. I met her gaze steadily. As majority stakeholder, I'm positioning myself to take a more active role. The meeting ended with cautious optimism from the investors. In the elevator afterward, Ethan exploded. What the hell was that? That was me saving your company from your mismanagement. By taking over? This isn't what you do, Ruby. You're not a tech executive. No, I'm just the person who funded your dreams while you screwed my sister. The elevator doors opened, and I walked out, leaving him sputtering behind me. Back at the office, Moises was waiting with more updates. Heidi's project is falling apart. 3 developers quit this morning. Already? I raised an eyebrow. That was faster than expected. She had a breakdown in the middle of a team meeting, started crying about being in over her head. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Ruby? Heidi's voice was shaky. I need help. Sounds like a personal problem. Please. The project. I don't understand half of what they're talking about. The team doesn't respect me. They know I'm not qualified. Finally, something we agree on. I'll quit. Just, please stop whatever you're doing. I laughed. Quit? No, dear sister. You're going to stay right where you are and face every consequence of your actions. Later that evening, Rosalind poured me another glass of wine. Don't you think you're being a little harsh? Harsh? I set my glass down. They destroyed my marriage, betrayed my trust, and tried to take advantage of my investment. They deserve harsh. I know, but... She hesitated. You seem different lately. Colder. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Mom again. Ruby, honey, what's going on? Heidi's a mess. Ethan looks terrible, and you're acting like nothing's wrong. Everything's fine, Mom. Don't lie to me. I'm your mother. I know when something's wrong with my girls. I closed my eyes. Mom, please. Not now. After hanging up, I checked my email. The investment firm had sent their terms, with one condition. I had to take over as CEO. They want me to run it, I told Nadia over the phone. Isn't that what you wanted? Is it? I stared out the window. I wanted revenge, but this is power, she finished. Real power. The next morning, I arrived at the office early to find Ethan waiting in my temporary workspace. We need to talk. He looked awful, unshaven, shirt wrinkled. About? About us. About what happened. He ran a hand through his hair. I made a terrible mistake, Ruby. The biggest mistake of my life. Just one mistake? Or 6 months of mistakes? I love you. I never stopped loving you. That's worse, actually. I kept my voice steady, because it means you knew exactly what you were doing when you betrayed me. What can I do? His voice cracked. Tell me how to fix this. For a moment, just a moment, I felt my resolve waver. Then I remembered finding them together, remembered every lie, every betrayal. You can't fix this, Ethan, but you can watch while I take everything you built and make it better than you ever could. He slumped against the wall. This isn't you, Ruby. This revenge. It's changing you. No, I stood up. It's revealing me. Now get out of my office. After he left, I sat there shaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Heidi. The team's requesting a project review. I can't do this presentation. Then fail, I typed back. Publicly. Another message popped up, this time from Moises. Board meeting in an hour. Investment firm's terms are on the agenda. I gathered my materials, pushing down the nagging voice that sounded suspiciously like Rosalind asking if I was going too far. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about proving something to myself. But as I watched my reflection in the elevator doors, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were harder, her smile sharper. She looked powerful, in control. She looked exactly like what I'd wanted to become. So why did that scare me so much? The boardroom fell silent as I laid out the investment firm's terms. Ethan sat at the far end, his face ashen. Heidi, who'd insisted on attending despite not being a board member, looked like she might throw up. Let me be clear, I said, standing at the head of the table. The firm will inject $20 million, but only under new leadership. Meaning you. Ethan's voice was hollow. Meaning someone with a proven track record of financial responsibility. I met his gaze. Which rules you out? Moises cleared his throat. The terms are favorable. Better than we could hope for, given our current situation. This is insane! Heidi burst out. She's doing this to punish us. Ms. Pearson, Moises said sharply, you're not a board member. Please refrain from commenting. I continued as if she hadn't spoken. The vote is simple. Accept the investment under new leadership, or watch this company collapse under its current management. Ruby? Ethan stood up. Can we discuss this privately? Sit down. My voice could have frozen hell. We're doing this here, now, in front of everyone. The vote was quick. Even Ethan, seeing no alternative, raised his hand in favor. Within minutes, I was officially CEO of the company I'd helped build, but never led. Effective immediately, I announced, all project leads will report directly to me. That includes you, Heidi. She paled. But my presentation is in 30 minutes. I look forward to it. The project review meeting was brutal. Heidi stumbled through her presentation, unable to answer basic questions about development timelines and resource allocation. The team's frustration was palpable. So, I said when she finished, you have no clear milestone dates, no budget oversight, and no grasp of the technical requirements? I've been learning as I go. Learning? I laughed. This isn't an internship. This is a multi-million-dollar project. Ruby, please. That's CEO Pearson to you. I turned to the team. From now on, Thomas will lead this project. Heidi, you're demoted to junior coordinator. Try not to sleep your way out of that position, too. The room went dead silent. Heidi burst into tears and ran out. I continued the meeting as if nothing had happened. Afterward, Ethan cornered me in my new office. His old office. That was cruel, he said. Cruel? I turned from organizing my desk. Like sleeping with my sister while I funded your dreams? That kind of cruel? I know I hurt you. No, I cut him off. You have no idea how much you hurt me, but you're about to find out. What does that mean? I smiled, pulling out a folder. It means I'm exercising my right as CEO to review all compensation packages, starting with yours and Heidi's. His face went white. You can't. I can and I will. Now get out of my office. Unlike some people, I actually work for my position. That evening, Rosalind found me still at my desk, reviewing files. You missed our dinner, she said, setting down takeout. Had to hear about your boardroom drama from 3 different people. Sorry, been busy. Ruby, she sat down. What are you doing? Running a company. No, you're destroying yourself. I saw Heidi crying in the parking lot. Good. Is it? She leaned forward. Because the Ruby I know wouldn't. The Ruby you know died the day her husband and sister betrayed her. No, Rosalind stood up. She didn't. She's just lost right now. And I hope she finds her way back before she becomes exactly what she hates. After she left, I stared at my reflection in the darkened window. My phone buzzed. Mom again. Heidi told me everything, she said when I answered. About her and Ethan. About what you're doing now. And I'm worried about you, honey. This revenge, it's eating you alive. I'm fine. No, you're not. None of you are. She paused. Come to dinner tomorrow. Just you and me, please? I hesitated, then agreed. Hanging up, I noticed a photo I'd missed while clearing out Ethan's things. Us on our wedding day, both smiling, full of hope. I picked it up, ready to throw it away, when something caught my eye. The way he looked at me then, with real love, real commitment. The same way he'd looked at me yesterday, begging to fix things. For the first time since this all began, I felt something crack in my carefully constructed wall of anger. But it was too late to stop now. Tomorrow, the new contracts would be announced. Tomorrow, they'd learn the true cost of betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd finally win. So why did victory suddenly taste so bitter? Mom's kitchen smelled like childhood, fresh bread, and something simmering on the stove. She handed me a cup of tea without asking if I wanted one. Some things never changed. Talk to me, she said, sitting across from me. Really talk to me. About what? How my husband and sister betrayed me? How I'm finally taking control? About why you're punishing yourself along with them? I nearly dropped my cup. I'm not. Ruby, look at yourself. When's the last time you slept? Really slept? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another crisis at the office. They never stopped now. See? Mom gestured at the phone. This isn't you taking control. This is you drowning yourself in revenge. You don't understand. I understand better than you think. She reached for my hand. Your father had an affair once. The world stopped. What? 25 years ago. I wanted to destroy him, destroy her, destroy everything we'd built. She squeezed my hand. But you know what I realized? What? That hatred hurts the person holding it more than anyone else. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Moises. Emergency. Ethan's threatening to go to the press. I have to go. I stood up abruptly. Work emergency. Ruby, I'll call you later. I found Ethan in the conference room with Moises and our PR team. He looked wild-eyed, desperate. You can't cut my salary by 60%, he said as soon as I walked in. I built this company. With my money, I reminded him, and your performance doesn't justify your current compensation. Then I'll tell everyone how you orchestrated this takeover, how you manipulated. Go ahead. I sat down calmly. Tell them how you mismanaged funds, gave unauthorized raises to your mistress, and nearly tanked the company before I saved it. He deflated visibly. Ruby, please, I know I hurt you. Hurt me? I laughed. You and Heidi destroyed everything I believed in, everything I trusted. And this is making it better? He gestured around. Looking over your shoulder, suspicious of everyone, working yourself to death for revenge? Mr. Sanders, Moises interrupted, I suggest you accept the new contract terms. They're more than fair given the circumstances. After Ethan left, Moises stayed behind. He's right about one thing. You're working yourself to death. I'm fine. No, you're not. And neither is Heidi. He hesitated. She had another breakdown today. Something twisted in my chest. Not my problem. Ruby, he said softly, when does it end? I didn't have an answer. That night, unable to sleep, I drove to the office. The security guard barely blinked anymore at my late hours. I found Heidi in her tiny new workspace, crying over project documents. What are you doing here? I asked. She jumped. I can't fail at this too. I can't. Looking at her, really looking at her, I saw what everyone else had been seeing. Dark circles under her eyes, unwashed hair, shaking hands. She looked like I felt. Go home, Heidi. I can't. If I fail at this job, you've already failed. The words came out softer than I intended. We both have. She looked up, confused. What? You failed as a sister. I failed at marriage. And now we're both failing at being human beings. I never meant, she started, to hurt me. But you did. You both did. I sat down heavily. And now I'm hurting everyone, including myself. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. For the first time since this began, I really looked at my sister, the girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who cried when I left for college, who'd always been more fragile than she pretended to be. I don't forgive you, I said finally. I don't know if I ever can. I know. But what we're doing, it has to stop. My phone buzzed. Rosalind. Just checking if you're still alive. Miss my best friend. Heidi glanced at my phone. Everyone misses who you used to be, even me. I miss her too. The admission surprised me. I'm just not sure how to find her again. Maybe. Heidi stood up shakily. We both need to find our way back. I watched her gather her things, remembering Mom's words about hatred hurting the person holding it. Looking around the empty office, at what my victory had cost, I finally understood what she meant. Heidi, I called as she reached the door. Get some sleep, real sleep. She nodded, then paused. You too, Ruby, please. After she left, I sat in the darkness, letting the weight of everything crash over me. My phone buzzed one last time. Mom. Remember, sweetheart, healing is harder than hurting, but it's worth it. For the first time in months, I let myself cry. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final separation agreement. Across the desk, Ethan sat quietly, pen in hand. You're keeping me on as CTO? He looked up from the papers. You're good at the technical side, I said. That was never the problem. And Heidi? She's resigned, taking classes in project management, learning the right way this time. He nodded slowly. I never wanted any of this. Neither did I. I pushed the papers toward him. Sign. As he scribbled his signature, Moises knocked and entered. The investment team is here. The meeting went smoothly. Our new structure was solid. Me as CEO, Ethan as CTO with clear boundaries, and a fresh management team vetted by the board. No more shortcuts, no more nepotism. Impressive turnaround, Sarah, the lead investor, said afterward, though not quite what we expected when we first met. Life rarely is, I replied. Later, I found Rosalind waiting in my office with lunch. Heard you're making changes. Had to. I took a bite of sandwich. Turns out revenge is exhausting. Finally figured that out, huh? She smiled. So what now? Now? I pulled out a folder. Remember that CMO position I turned down 3 years ago? They're still interested? Different company, better offer. I handed her the letter. They want someone who can transform struggling businesses. And the startup? I'll remain on the board, but step down as CEO once we've stabilized. Moises will take over. He's ready. My phone buzzed. Heidi. Passed my first certification exam. Good job, I texted back. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. You're different, Rosalind observed. Lighter somehow. Mom said something that stuck with me. about hatred hurting the person holding it. Smart woman, your mom. Speaking of, I checked the time. I should go. Family dinner tonight. The whole family. No, just mom and me. Baby steps. That evening, Mom's kitchen felt different. No tension, no unspoken accusations. Just the familiar smell of home and the sound of her humming while she cooked. Heard about the changes at work, she said, stirring sauce. Proud of you. For giving up revenge? For choosing growth instead? She turned to face me. It's harder, isn't it? Much harder. I helped her plate the food. But better. And Heidi? We text sometimes, about her classes, mostly. I sat down. I'm not ready for more. But you're ready for something, she smiled. That's progress. After dinner, I drove to the beach, my thinking spot since childhood. The waves crashed steadily as I pulled out my phone and opened my email drafts. Dear Heidi, I typed. Coffee next week? Just us. Before I could overthink it, I hit send. My phone rang almost immediately. Nadia. Heard you're leaving the startup, she said. News travels fast. You okay? I watched the waves, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the cost of both. Actually, yeah, I said. For the first time in months, I really am. Good, she paused. Because that CMO position? It's at my new company. I laughed. You planned this? Let's say I saw potential in your transformation, both personal and professional. Walking along the beach, I felt lighter with each step. My phone buzzed again, Heidi accepting the coffee invitation, then Ethan confirming the final paperwork was filed, then Rosalind suggesting celebratory drinks. I sat in the sand, watching the sunset, and opened my journal. The one Mom gave me when this all started. On the first page, I'd written a list of everything I wanted. Revenge, control, victory. Now I wrote a new list. Peace, growth, purpose, healing. The last rays of sun glinted off my wedding ring, still on my finger. I twisted it off, feeling its weight one last time, then stood and walked to the water's edge. The ring made a small splash as it hit the waves. Not everything needed to be held on to. Not everything needed to be fixed. Sometimes letting go was its own kind of victory. My phone lit up with a final text from Mom. Remember what I always say? I smiled, typing back the phrase she'd repeated throughout my childhood. The strongest people know when to put down their weapons and pick up their wisdom. Standing there, between the setting sun and the rising moon, I finally understood what she meant. The real victory wasn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something better from the ruins. I turned away from the ocean and headed home, leaving behind the weight of revenge and carrying instead the lighter burden of hope.